Well, Senator Susan Collins recently announced her support for the Save America Act. If passed, the bill would create stricter voter ID laws requiring individuals to provide documented proof of citizenship when registering to vote and to show a photo ID before voting. The bill passed the House last Wednesday and now makes its way to the Senate. When asked about her support for the bill, Collins says passing the bill would ensure confidence in election results. Critics of the bill argue it would disenfranchise millions of voters. Collins says showing proof of citizenship should only be required when registering to vote for the first time.
A provision requiring a one-time proof of citizenship when you register to vote, I do not believe is burdensome. If you had to do it every time, I would not support this bill.
Now, as it currently stands, there are not enough votes in the Senate to get the bill past the filibuster rules, which require 60 votes to advance legislation. Some Republicans want to end the filibuster rules to get the measure passed by a simple majority, something Collins says she is not in favor of doing.